Welcome back to Omoshiroi Recap. Today, I will recap Hero Return. The story begins in 2093 when terrible monsters of unknown origin suddenly appeared and attacked humans. The world was destroyed and full of chaos. At the same time, the crime rate worldwide continued to increase from year to year, and the world crisis was inevitable. Finally, 2 years later, the first superhero in human history named Zero appeared, who defeated all the monsters and captured the rampant criminals. After beheading the Monster King, Zero shared information about monsters and villains. Since then, other superheroes began to emerge who followed Zero's footsteps and began to fight crime. Finally, in 2010, the crime rate was successfully suppressed and began to decrease so that the world returned to peace. But after the world became fine, suddenly Zero disappeared. He started living as an ordinary person and hiding his powers. His real name is Jailin, and he lives with his younger sister. Now, he is no longer a superhero and only an unemployed otaku, so he is always scolded by his younger sister and told to find a job to not burden the family. While in the city, Zero was involved in a fight between a sea-level villain named Black Hand and the well-known hero Shishin. Shishin and his partner easily defeated Black Hand. It turned out that on the previous day, Shishin had paid Black Hand to give in during the fight later. Shishin's goal is to get points to move up the rankings, but because Zero handcuffed Black Hand's leg, he thought Zero was a police officer working with Shishin. Black Hand raged out his transformation technique so that Shishin's hero was beaten. Suddenly came an E-level hero named Jan Chen. He had no experience in fighting, so he even hurt himself. Even so, he still tried to launch attacks even though nothing worked. Meanwhile, Black Hand became annoyed to see him and wanted to kill him. His determination amazed Zero, so he saved him and used the hammer weapon. Hence, Zero managed to defeat Black Hand. Jan Chen saw Zero's ability was powerful and immediately asked Zero to be his partner. Jan Chen even followed Zero to his house. Jan Chen explained to Zero's younger sister that being a hero would get a salary and bonus. Knowing this, his sister forced Zero to accept the offer. Zero was forced to accept it, and the next day, Zero was taken to the hero's office to take an exam. Zero must pass the exam to officially become a hero. The first test is a fighting test. Zero must face a muscular man named Yatten for 3 minutes to pass the test. But Zero says he will beat him, which excites Yatten and puts all his strength against him. Yatten admits that Zero is the strongest candidate he has ever met. Yatten throws rocks and continues to attack Zero quickly, but Zero stepped on his hand and attacked his face with a knee. That final blow made Yatten admit his defeat. A while later, Yatten woke up in the hospital and didn't remember that Zero had defeated him. Beside him is a girl named Dongzuren, telling him he was just defeated by a newcomer. Dongzuren said Zero's strength is equivalent to that of an A-level hero. Unfortunately, Zero got a low score on the written exam and wrote that he didn't want to be a hero. While in front of the bulletin board, Jan Chen laughs at Zero because he got a bad score on the written exam. Even so, Zero is officially a hero. Still, he feels hesitant to make a team with others because he feels that having a partner will only trouble him. Then, a hero with glasses was bullied by other heroes because he was a fan of Zero. The heroes insult Zero by calling him a loser, and hearing that makes Zero angry. He immediately saved the man with glasses and intended to beat them up. But suddenly came an E-level hero named Shisen. For some reason, they were scared when they met Shisen and immediately ran away. Then Zero and the others got acquainted with Shisen. Knowing that Shisen also liked the cute witch girl, Zero immediately invited him to be his partner. The 4 of them finally formed a group, but without them knowing this, Shisen had strange powers. He was feared by everyone because he always brought trouble to a person who was near him. It really happened when Shisen accidentally destroyed the hero's office. Zero immediately protected the little girl there, but the bespectacled hero was hit by the debris and seriously injured. After the incident, they asked Shisen to keep his distance from them so they wouldn't be exposed to his misfortune. Then, they went on a mission together to track down a criminal group. Yan King used the power of teleportation to move their weapons. After all the preparations were completed, they began to attack the criminal group that traded monsters. Zero's group came to attack them. Unfortunately, firearms did not work on the monster, and he could regenerate. Zero also took out his weapon and hit the monster until it was thrown into the city's center, causing chaos. Jan Chen uses his rocket shoes to avoid every attack on the monster and launches an attack right at the monster's weakest point. Suddenly, the monster turns into a beautiful little girl. It turns out that the girl is a victim of experiments from the previous criminal group. Ms. Dong met Zero's group and explained that the genetic evolution company used abandoned girls as experimental material. Ms. Dong also told them that the company had an insider helping them, the president of the Hero Association named Aoyang Rui. Hearing that many children were killed, Zero questioned what the heroes were doing. Instantly, Zero's anger makes the place tremble, making it difficult for friends to breathe. Ms. Dong also told them that the villains would probably send professional killers to capture the girl as she was a very important subject, so Zero decided to take the girl with him. Zero contacted his younger sister to meet him. She was surprised and thought Zero had kidnapped the girl. Fortunately, his sister understood after being told the girl was an orphan who needed help. Because the girl was cute, his sister Zero wanted to take care of her and invited her to live with her while calling her Mumu. At the same time, Zero and his partner meet the messengers of the president of the Hero Association. They are D-level heroes who are paid to catch the girl back. They greatly underestimated Zero and his friends. They thought Zero was only an E-level hero who would be easy to defeat. But not even a minute, they were beaten by Zero. Knowing they had been defeated made President Aoyang immediately upset. Then, the leader of the Genetic Evolution Company sent his troops to finish off Zero. A beautiful assassin infiltrated Jan Chen's house to kill him. But she instead found a tool made by Jan Chen, which she thought was a tool for perverting girls. The girl panicked and used a body-cleaning plasma weapon to make Jan Chen naked. The girl also saw Jan Chen's elephant trunk. Feeling embarrassed, the girl ran away and did not kill him. On the other hand, when Zero's sister and Mumu took a bath, a hitman was stalking them. Zero immediately meets him and wonders why perverts always come to him. He is a hero and the strongest assassin in the association. Therefore, he is very confident and can defeat Zero. Unfortunately, Zero only launched a single attack, seriously injuring the man. He injected a crazy drug into his body, making him turn into a monster, and his strength was equivalent to an S-level villain. Even so, none of his attacks worked on Zero. He was just a weak creature to Zero and advised him to leave. Instead, he threatened to come back and kill the girl and Zero's sister. Hearing this, Zero was immediately angry and no longer cared about the rules of fellow heroes prohibited from killing each other. Zero shot the man, destroying half the mountain there. When he returned home, Zero remembered Ms. Dong's plan to destroy the Genetic Evolution Company. Therefore, Zero prepared himself to use his ultimate weapon. A few days later, Ms. Dong gathered Zero and company. She told them that President Aoyang would be holding a meeting with the Genetic Evolution Company. Ms. Dong plans to take them down. Ms. Dong also gets help from an A-level hero named Zhao Yi and her people from the Muscle League. At night, Mr. Gan wants to pick up Aoyang using his helicopter. Simultaneously, the Muscle League's people immediately attack, so the battle begins. While Mr. Gan intended to escape from there, fortunately, Zhao Yi knocked them down with the power of ice. However, another hero shot her ice wings off. They split up to fight each other's enemies. Jan Chen will fight the hit girl who infiltrated his house earlier. Ms. Dong will face President Aoyang, while Zero will fight Mr. Gan. Unfortunately, Ms. Dong couldn't match Aoyang's strength, so she could only buy time. Mr. Gan felt he could not defeat Zero, so he used crazy medicine to become stronger. Even though Zero had mastered martial arts, he easily paralyzed Mr. Gan. Zero, upset because Mr. Gan used a child for an experiment, immediately stomped on his face until he was battered. Meanwhile, Jan Chen fights an assassin girl and suddenly offers her to be his girlfriend. Jan Chen will give her a new world and a new life. Jan Chen is very worried about the girl. If left alone, she will only be arrested or remain a killer until her death arrives. Jan Chen says he'll care for her if she joins him as a hero. The girl accepted because she realized that death would only be waiting for her if she continued her work as an assassin. Ziola is trapped in a magical prison. Yan King tries hard to free her, but he can't fight. However, he has a secret weapon, and when he activates it, the criminal's body freezes and shatters into pieces. On the other hand, Miss Dong, who was almost killed, was finally saved by Zero. Miss Dong blushed when Zero saved her life. Aoyang had lost his armor and decided to use crazy medicine. Instantly, his strength increased dramatically, and even so, Zero managed to parry his attack one-handed. Then Zero threw him into the air. When Zero wanted to attack, Aoyang immediately took out his ultimate move, self-destruction. But Zero is not weak, the explosion did not work, and Zero even hit him to the ground. Finally, Aoyang was defeated, and this case was resolved. A few days later, Zero visited his friends who were hospitalized. Their relationship improved since the previous battle, and even Jan Chen was served by his girl. Miss Dong began to be spoiled and always sought attention from Zero, but did not realize it and only blushed. Then Miss Dong told them there would be special training, and they were willing to accept it. But Zero did not participate because he was too strong and did not need more training. His friends still forced him to participate, and Zero said that they would not be able to defeat him even if they attacked him together. Hearing that made them upset, and they wanted to prove their strength. Zero was immediately attacked by 4 people at once. They used their respective skills and took turns launching attacks on Zero. Unfortunately, Zero knocked them down individually, even though Miss Dong used her signature move. Unfortunately, Zero could destroy her with one blow. Meanwhile, Jan Chen couldn't escape and got beaten by Zero, because they could not invite Zero to join the training and inevitably had to go alone. Zero was beaten by his younger sister at home for bringing a dog and making a mess of the house. It turned out that Mumu wanted to take care of a dog, and after seeing their cute faces, she decided to take care of the dog. Then Zero's sister went to work in the laboratory. At the same time, the professor there was asked to cure Aoyong, but unfortunately, he could not. Knowing Aoyong was useless, they immediately killed him. The someone who will replace the president of the Hero Association is Dong Yang, who is Miss Dong's older brother. A few days later, all the heroes were invited to the office to attend the election of the new Hero Association president. Miss Dong, who had not seen Zero for a long time, immediately teased him and hoped that Zero would like her too. After that, the president of the new Hero Association made his speech. After the speech, Miss Dong met her brother. It was revealed that Miss Dong was forced to marry someone from the Aoyong family. Miss Dong was scared and dared not go against her brother's orders. Zero was with the others to protect Miss Dong. At that time, there was an argument between Zero and Dong Yang, so Dong Yang used mental power to paralyze them. All the heroes in that place were immediately bowed down, unable to move their bodies. But that ability did not affect Zero. Even Zero immediately responded by releasing a stronger aura. Dong Yang was thrown to vomit blood. At first, Dong Yang only wanted to test Zero's ability. Still, now he was sure that Zero was a perilous person. Meanwhile, Zero was worried about Miss Dong, so Zero asked Shisen to watch Miss Dong. On the other hand, Lin Wan is doing her research. She has made her pet dog smart and can even read books and learn independently. Then, a man who likes Lin Wan tells Lin Wan she is in danger, because the owner of the research site is the Aoyong family with the Dong family. Unfortunately, Lin Wan didn't want to listen to him and always ignored him. At night, Shisen was watching Miss Dong's residence, and at the same time, a suspicious person escorted by 4 robots arrived. Shisen immediately told Zero about it. It turned out that the person was the young master of the Aoyong family, who was betrothed to Miss Dong. However, Miss Dong refused the engagement because the Aoyong family was cruel. This made Aoyong Zahal upset and was rude to her. The group of muscular men came to protect Miss Dong. Unfortunately, they were easily defeated by the robot. Then Zahal violently forced Miss Dong into the car and came with him. Shisen, from a distance, tried to shoot him, but Zahal deflected the bullet and returned it with his bare hands. Zahal can also kill someone with air, leaving Shisen seriously injured. Not wanting to see her friends get hurt, Miss Dong was willing to obey Zahal. Finally, Zahal immediately took her to another place to have fun. When Shisen was almost killed, fortunately, Zero came to his rescue. Zero has confirmed that the robot cannot be destroyed because it can regenerate. Zero took out his legendary weapon, the Fire Spirit Sword. With the sword, Zero easily cut the robots to extinction. Seeing Zero use the Fire Spirit Sword makes Zahal interested in him. Therefore, he plans to use Miss Dong to lure Zero to his place. Meanwhile, Zero is furious, knowing the Aoyong family will take Miss Dong away. Zero intends to destroy the entire Aoyong family immediately, but his friends stop him and ask him to calm down. They invited Zero to make a plan to save Miss Dong. His girlfriend Jan Chen and the super smart dog managed to hack the security system at the Aoyong family residence. That way, they can infiltrate there to destroy the wedding. The next day, they had their respective tasks, and one made a commotion in front of the house, while the other began to infiltrate and bypass all the security systems of the Aoyong family's house. Finally, Zero was able to meet with Miss Dong in her room. Zero immediately invited her to run away from there. Still, Miss Dong couldn't do that because she didn't want to make any more trouble for her family. She even said that she didn't want to go with Zero because she wasn't anyone to Zero. Zero asks her to trust him because he is the strongest and will protect her no matter what. Then Zero destroyed the place and again invited Miss Dong to run away. Finally, Miss Dong accepted that and ran away from there. As they left the place, they met Jan Chen, who was beaten by Zahal's robot. Zahal challenges Zero to a match with him. If Zero wins, he can take Miss Dong away, but if he loses, Zero must hand over his legendary fire spirit sword. Their fight was witnessed by the head of the Aoyang family and the head of the Dong family. Dong Yang was also there, but suddenly he left and headed somewhere. Meanwhile, the leaders of the families were surprised to see the legendary fire spirit sword and were looking forward to their fight. Unfortunately, Zero will not use the legendary sword but ordinary weapons to beat Zahal. When the fight began, Zahal greatly underestimated Zero. It turned out that Zahal's strength proved to be strong because he could make Zero hassle with his magic shots and his shield that could parry Zero's attacks. Zahal thought he would win, but Zero instantly turned the tables. Zero destroyed Zahal's defenses and struck him in the face. Since Zahal had done evil to Miss Dong, Zero mercilessly beat him by bringing out the green dragon. The powerful attack managed to slash Zahal's body. Zahal was forced to use his ultimate move, a huge sword directly aimed at Zero, and destroy the arena barrier. Unfortunately, Zero wasn't hurt, and Zahal was kicked to a pulp. Zahal did not accept his defeat and activated the SS level Forbidden Curse scroll. A huge explosion destroyed the place, and Zahal turned into a demon with abundant power. Knowing Zero is still alive makes Zahal upset. He unites all his strength in one deadly attack, but Zero retaliated with a green dragon scythe that hit Zahal's body. Finally, Zahal had poorly lost and could no longer move. Miss Dong was so happy to see Zero's victory that she immediately jumped towards Zero to hug him. Suddenly, a powerful force made everyone unable to move their bodies except Zero. It turns out that the one who did that was a bald man similar to Saitama, who claimed to be a god. He was actually the president of the Hero Association, Dong Yang. Dong Yang utilized Zero's younger sister's research tools to turn into a bald man with the power of a god. As a child, he greatly admired Zero and wanted to be a hero like him. Unfortunately, he didn't know that the person he was fighting was the hero Zero. The bald man launched a wave of energy like a white tiger. Still, using only the power of thought, Zero could destroy it, giving the man a nosebleed. The bald man was angry and always called himself a true god. Zero insulted him by saying the bald man was a god rebel. Dong Yang launched a tornado attack and various other attacks until he finally managed to injure Zero. Dong Yang used the opportunity to enter Zero's subconscious using the divine spirit scraping. At that time, he saw the appearance of a horrible monster and Zero crying, hugging a girl. At the same time, Zero's body released a powerful force, and it turned out that Zero's legendary hero form was awakened. Dong Yang couldn't accept that the person he was fighting was the hero he admired. Dong Yang's anger exploded, creating a tornado storm. Zero pulled out the Excalibur sword and moved to slash Dong Yang. The attack managed to slash him and split the sky. Dong Yang survived, then pulled out a Susanoo move to counter Zero's attack. At the same time, Zero used his ultimate move of judgment and released enormous energy that even penetrated space. Dong Yang managed to survive because he moved into a spiritual space. Still, Zero easily tore through the spiritual space and ended the fight with a redemption move.
Oh shit.
After the fight ended, Zero returned to his human form, Dong Yang, who was now asking why Zero could be so strong. Zero took off his clothes and showed his body full of wounds. It turned out that the wounds he got from fighting monsters and otherworldly gods. After all the battles, Zero's strength became invincible. Then Dong Yang asked about the girl Zero could not save. Unfortunately, Zero could not tell him that. After that, Dong Yang felt happy because he could die at the hands of the person he admired. The world returned to peace, and they went back to living their days as usual. However, Miss Dong accepted a job abroad and will move there. Before they parted, Miss Dong kissed Zero romantically at sunset, and Zero promised to wait for Miss Dong to return. However this story ends, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.